Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, March 20th, 2023. You may have seen some mention of a story that I think was first on the website, the Financial Times, which I'll say there's a paywall to actually be able to view it. So I did not read the original article in its original entirety, but instead have read several different interpretations and reports on it, which honestly it doesn't really even matter what the true article says, but it's more of the impression that it left on me, which is, in terms of Apple, I think actually a positive one. So the gist of the story is there were designers, and it's hard for me to tell whether they were, and of course with sources you don't really know, but basically people that were either former employees or some that may still be employed at Apple who were complaining about the fact that the current CEO, Tim Cook, had overridden the concerns of design team members over their upcoming mixed reality headset. I think that's what it's being called even internally at Apple, is mixed reality. And basically there were people who felt that the technology was not where it needed to be, and rather than ship a unit that wasn't where they felt it should be, again, up to their judgment from what we know and what we don't know, that they should wait. And apparently Tim Cook is at the point where he is tired of waiting. This thing has been in development apparently for quite a long time and wants to get some version of it supposedly out this year. Now, there's a lot of things that may or may not be true about this article. But one thing that I think is, if even the barest details of this are in fact true, and even if there aren't, it doesn't really matter. Because the fact is, when people start talking about things that they don't like about somebody, that's usually, some people have said that's a sour grapes thing or disgruntled ex-employees, but generally there is at least some truth in what they're saying. It just may be that their version of the events is slightly different. But what I think it does positively say about Apple, because I actually take this as an overall positive story, that the design mentality that dominated at Apple, particularly under Johnny Ive, but even Steve Jobs. And this goes back to this idea that people have deified Steve Jobs, which I really still just don't understand. But that after Steve Jobs died, that Johnny Ive was, by all accounts, his kind of natural protege and successor. And he was allowed to do a lot of things that probably weren't all that great. There were a number of design decisions that were, well, let's just be generous and say questionable. The butterfly keyboard, some of the things that went on with the Apple Watch. It was absolutely not the case that Johnny Ive was some kind of genius who made no mistakes. And I think what a lot of people have said that feels like it's true is that these are probably people who felt that his approach was the best one. But for most people on the end user side, those of us who bought the devices, and for people, I luckily was not one of them, who would drop a crumb into their keyboard and suddenly have a non-functional machine, they probably would see this as a positive. And I have to agree, because I think that Apple's recent design decisions have been massive improvements over the ones when Ive was clearly in control. And I think that the need for thin at all possible cost and to just do bizarre things that do make sense if you are looking at an object in a vacuum, an object that does not actually have to be used by someone. Then some of the things that Apple was doing, they made sense as conceptual art showpieces. And I say this as an artist. I look at them and I go, okay, I understand what the intent behind that was, but that doesn't make for a good consumer device that you have to actually use on a daily basis. The touch bar, another one, pointless from the beginning, never had a purpose, never was demonstrated to have any real purpose, and of course has now been cast aside. There's a number of these things. So reading this report, some people, and I've seen this read of this particular story as well, is that, this Tim Cook is just making them into basically a factory, that, he doesn't know what the soul of Apple is. He doesn't have that desire for design and the art of Apple, which I think is nonsense. I think that Apple still has a design intent and a design language that you can tell. There is a very Apple-esque approach to things, still to a fault in some cases. So I don't think Tim Cook has completely eliminated some of the designer problems that they've got at Apple. But I would take this as a positive, because in the end, it's very nice to admire something. But generally, you also then need that thing, if it is a computing device of some kind, to actually function. And in the end, if you need something to work, if it's between it looking pretty and doing the thing you need it to do, you're going to want it to do the thing that you need to do. So again, lots of different people have different interpretations of this story, but honestly, from what I can gather is the general truth of it, I think this is actually a very positive sign, and I think it's actually a good thing for Apple. Just my interpretation, but that's what it is. Later.